Shout out to Brandon Johnson. Shout out to B Johnson in the building. We appreciate you, B Johnson. B Johnson is an eviction king now. Did y'all know that? Did y'all know that B Johnson is an eviction king? All right. I'm going to help y'all to understand why this is such an interesting conversation, because they are now evicting migrants from Chicago shelters. Now, on one hand, you can say, well, Anton, isn't that the thing that the American people wanted? I'm going to say, kind of, sort of, but not really. Because what the American people wanted was for them not to be here in the first place. They didn't want them displaced. And they didn't want them to continue to bring them in here with no place to go. And so this is one of the reasons why it was important for us to have these conversations in the beginning. Now we remixing. But let me bring y'all up to speed of what's happening out here in these streets. Looks like we're not going to talk about that. But I got a backup.
The number of migrants evicted today was small, only around 34, primarily single men, from 3 city-run shelters. Yet they represent the beginning of a policy that the city announced last November, but repeatedly delayed because of the winter months. Outside of West Town's migrant shelter this morning, there was talk of those who were shown the door today and concern about who might be next, as the city of Chicago enacted a 60-day maximum shelter stay policy after months of delays. Designed to open up shelter space for new arrivals, the new policy will see 250 migrants evicted by the end of March, over 2,000 by the end of April. But not everyone in city government agrees that this is the way to go.
I don't believe the city should be in the business of evicting people, especially those that need shelter, those who don't have work authorization, haven't gotten rental assistance.
Is that Andre Vasquez? Let's see. Let me see if we can get Andre on the line here. Andre Vasquez, Chicago.
Thank you for calling the 40th Ward office. The office is open Monday to Thursday from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. and Fridays from 12 p.m. to 3 p.m. Please press 0 to speak to someone. If you cannot get through, please try again at a later time. It is possible. Thank you for calling the 40th Ward office. The office is open Monday to Thursday from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. and Fridays from 12 p.m. to 3 p.m. Please press 0 to speak to someone. If you cannot get through, please try again at a later time. If possible, go to our website, 40thward.org/contact, and submit the contact form. Thank you for calling and have a nice day. Gracias por llamar a la oficina del distrito. Thank you for calling the 40th Ward.
Oh, I see what he's doing. I see what you're doing, big dog. So you're just keeping us in a loop. Every time that I press 0, they just route me to the same thing over and over again. And so you never really get through to anybody. You just keep on going in a circle. Yeah, that's not going to work. Anyways, let's continue.
Exempt from eviction, at least for now, are families with children who will be able to request up to 3 30-day extensions. Those with certain medical conditions or a recent exposure to measles will also be allowed to request an extension.
Measles? I thought that we had wiped out measles a long time ago. Didn't the measles get wiped out? When the last time y'all heard of somebody getting measles? Man, let me tell you something. That's got to be people coming over here with that nonsense, because I ain't heard of measles. I ain't heard of measles in a long time. At all. I didn't even know measles still existed. Did people still get measles and chicken pox and stuff like that? Last thing I started hearing about was shingles. I ain't heard nothing about no measles.
Even though families with kids can have an extension until school breaks out, what happens after school breaks out? Now those families are going to be out homeless.
Those who've spent nearly a year volunteering with migrants on a near daily basis agree.
In order for them to pay for the housing, they would need a job. I hate to see them, set them up to fail. Unfortunately, they're still in the process of getting situated.
Meanwhile, a group of Gage Park residents gathered outside the field house turned shelter this afternoon to protest the existence of the shelter altogether, which has seen services previously offered here relocated.
It seems like it's indefinite. We don't know when we're ever coming back. We're not getting any answers. My daughter was a participant in the special recreation program, and she got relocated to McKinley Park, and she was at the park for 14 years before the program was relocated.
Those evicted and unable to find alternate accommodations are not without options, however. The city saying that they can reapply for shelter space by coming to the South Loop landing zone, which is where all migrants must pass through when first getting to Chicago.
Watch breaking news on YouTube. Subscribe.
So, long story short, they brought these people here, or they was okay with bringing them here, but now they just kicking them out with nowhere to go. They brought these people here, and now they're removing them and kicking them out with nowhere to go. So now, because they landed on American soil and they started having children here and all of this stuff, it then becomes our problem. This is a we problem now, y'all. Remember, this is not a Chicago problem. This is all of our problem, because we all got to deal with it in one way or another. Because what you going to do with them? What you going to act like they don't exist all of a sudden? They're going to be on your streets. They're going to be in your neighborhoods. And you see what happened in New York, right? Nobody's seen what happened in New York. Y'all don't know what's going on in New York. It's turning rampant. It's turning into some of the craziest things that we've ever seen in our life, because this isn't a Chicago problem now. This is everybody's problem.
Right now, evictions underway for nearly 36 migrants at 3 different city-run shelters. Those being evicted have hit the 60-day shelter limit. Although some received extensions, CBS 2's Darius Johnson joins us from the landing zone, where some of those evicted will come right back.
The city informed nearly 36 migrants on Friday that they would be evicted today, and they came back here to the landing zone to start the process for housing once again. The road to stability can be tough, especially for the thousands of migrants who hope to call Chicago home.
Sunday is our first day. I am sure that within, a couple weeks of this iteration, it'll, evolve, and we'll tweak it to be more effective and efficient.
Today, nearly 36 migrants who've occupied a bed at 3 city-run shelters since November were evicted. Brandy Kanazi with the Chicago Department of Family and Support Services says it's a new approach.
Right now, this is the first wave, and so we're going to take it one day at a time to, this is always continuous improvement in our processes. But right now, the process is that individuals will go back to the landing zone and they will reapply for shelter through that process.
Especially if they haven't found permanent housing through a relative or rental assistance in 60 days.
Migrants are being evicted from shelters. And I know that sounds like a great thing, right? But what I'm telling y'all is that the plan was flawed from the beginning. It was flawed from the beginning because there was no pathway to sustainability. You couldn't continue to keep them on the rolls. They can't continue to fund this migrant crisis because they're operating at a deficit. They taking money away from everything else that they're supposed to be taking care of in order to continue to fund it. In your schools, they don't have no IDs. They don't know who these people are. They're not able to feed themselves, clothe themselves. There's no jobs for them because there was already underemployment on the streets in the first place. It's cold in Chicago. And so now they just keeping them in a cycle because there was no plan other than the fact that they was just going to bring them over here. And so how was they supposed to deal with this in the first place? And this is the point. See, listen, if somebody comes over your house, right? And let's just say, because the United States of America is our house. And let's just say they knock on the door and they say, oh my God, I don't have anywhere to stay or whatever, so on and so forth. Now I can give you some food, but you can't stay here though. I can give you some food. Like I could buy you something to eat, but you can't stay here because there's no pathway to sustainability. I don't have any plan for you. I ain't got a job to give you. You're not about to stay here around my daughter. What you gonna do when I'm at work? That's another mouth to feed. And that's essentially what we did when we let them inside of the United States of America, or we just opened up our doors. It was the equivalent of opening up the door to your house and letting any and everybody come in and take up a bedroom. Except the only difference is they said, well, we'll temporarily let you sleep on the couch, but you got to get out. And what you think gonna happen when they say, well, you got to get out? Well, they just say the same thing that everybody else say. Well, where am I supposed to go? I'm not going nowhere. I got just as much of a right to be here as you. I'm telling you, I'm just as American as you now. There's people that's here, right? And they've been here illegally. But then they get mad and they protest at the federal government for not giving them a pathway to success when they was never supposed to be here in the first place. And then they say, well, I'm just as American as you. And then I'll be thinking to myself, well, how did you get the ability to open up a business and pay taxes and get the permits and the licensing? Listen, man, I can't even drive down the street without a license without getting pulled over, and I'm going straight to jail. Don't collect gold. Don't collect $200. I'm going to jail. I can't even go down the street with no license. And I ain't talking about a suspended license. I'm talking about without my license on me. Without getting pulled over, it's almost like they know I ain't got my license on me. Hey, man, you ain't got your license? You know that's you can go to jail for that. Hey, where the tow car at? Tow his car, going to jail. We need to verify who you are, and let's go ahead and fingerprint you.
They're back to the landing zone where they began.
We'll be working with them to make sure that they can connect with family and friends. Again, that's part of what the case management is preparing them. But, they'll be able to either wait for a bed throughout our shelter system.
However, families with children enrolled in Chicago public schools are safe to stay until the end of the school year. As the city pushes migrants to find stability, more than 2,000 migrants are set to be evicted by April 30th. The next round of evictions are set to happen later this month, and it's expected to impact more than 200 migrants. Reporting from the landing zone, I'm Darius Johnson, CBS 2 News.
And guess where they coming? Listen, bro, they not going home. They not going home. And so what happens is your survival instincts kick in. You start doing one of two things. Either you hustle, right? You start doing something and you try to do it legally, or you start doing whatever you got to do to survive illegally. This is a zero-sum game, y'all. It's been a zero-sum game. Yes, Stock Club is included with the Patreon. It's been a zero-sum game since the beginning. We just trying to figure out what the end game is. We already there. It's not like we going to put the genie back in the bottle. You're not going to put all of these people back behind the wall. Listen, Haitians seen what the Venezuelans and the Asians did, and they said, look, ooh, barbecue is over here cooking. So, Florida, what up, though? Florida, what up, though? Y'all letting us in or what? We coming through. Y'all let them in. They came in illegally. These people got in off TikTok. What up, though? Florida, we coming through or what? We got whole towns named after people. Little Haiti. You said, what? Now we got mayors advocating for it.